Yes.
Oh. Yeah.
Closer, please.
Closer.
Yes.
Okay. Hello. Is it working? Perfect. Okay. Can I start? Good morning, everybody, and welcome. We are gathered here today to bid a fond farewell to Vernon, a very special man. I will open the reading with a prayer. Keep us, O Lord, from pettiness. Let us be large in thought, in word and deed. Let us be done with fault finding and leave off self-seeking. May we put away all pretense and meet each other face to face, without self-pity and without prejudice. May we never be hasty in judgment and always be generous. Teach us to put into action our better impulses, to be straightforward and unafraid. Vernon lived a productive and fulfilling life. He honored his duty to
Would everyone please turn to O God our help? That's the first song. And I'm going to play some music. And there is a choir, so you don't have to be totally abandoned to our own voices. So just do this.
Can you give me 1 second to get that?
You can have a short break afterwards. This prayer was selected by David as one of the favorite hymns that my father loved. And it's one of the old traditional hymns, and it still remains wonderful. So I'll just wait for a few minutes to start. I think if you don't mind while she's preparing the sound, I'd like to ask that just with me part of my tribute to my dad. If that can you mustn't have to
Let me just take this down quickly. Yes, please. I just want to get that down quickly. I wonder if it's that thing. I don't know what's interacting. Sorry, guys. Something is interacting here because it's muted. Yes. Maybe if you can switch off your phones. Might also help what's interacting. It's muted. Both of them are muted, and I'm still getting the feedback.
Basil, you speak so well. Just speak without.
No,
But
but-
then we have to Oh,
It's that's not collected here. It's just for everybody to hear and for me to pick it up here.
Okay, you can talk with this one.
I'm just going to phone Rob in the office once because if I stand here and I say everything comes through then it shouldn't.
It is the sample from the cell phone.
is there anyone who's the other class?
And we just need to
So it's very happy to wait.
when they speak we need to put it back on.
Oh, it's really lovely.
Oh.
Thank you.
So great.
Okay.
I think we're ready. Sorry to interrupt.
So I'll stop the song for us. I wonder if this is also muted and I'll use it. Familiar with this song. It used to be sung in schools years and years ago. I remember primary school when they sang it. And so it's a lovely choice to remember part of Dad's life, preschool, etc. So we just sing it unaccompanied. Please, can we just sing it unaccompanied? Yes, and then it's not online. Is it online, Chris?
Yes.
We are, so maybe sing.
Yeah, no, we're up there.
Oh,
We all good. I just needed the sound
oh,
sounds from somewhere.
all right, what says you have to go? Anyone who can sing, please put a start in it. Okay, we should keep the notes. That's not done. Is that song?
Shelter from the stormy blast, and on eternal hope, and the shadows of time, rising heavens secure, sufficient is thy heart, and all behold the still waters should already see her faith. From the mercy thou art come to endless restless sea.
I need to be fast to us.
We need an instrumental.
We do the form.
We need an instrumental.
It's
Really?
good.
Niemand kan van ons.
I think
Ik weet niet waar het komt.
Let's just go to downloads. Maybe just go to downloads. Maybe just Right, let's do this one.
Nee, niet dat is waar ze wat is het?
Technology is great when it works.
These are remember us singing the sing at school, and our dad used to tell us how the boys all sang the singing, and it was wonderful. I'm glad we got the so let's remember and sing in the best way possible and try to ignore our France was not allowed. No. You stand next to me in the same Yes. Should we sing it over the compliment? Absolutely. Should we warm up the rock of the roof? Absolutely. Okay, let's go. Are we starting from the top? Are we starting from the top? You like singing? Okay. We love singing. So we'll keep singing. And now I want to give you a short anecdote. During Dad's Dad Evenings Dad, he joined the group of people who used to sing. They used to have an afternoon singing session. And we received word from friends, one of my friends told us that Dad was one of the stars of that singing group. He was one of the stars. And not only that, when he finished singing, they asked him to do a solo for them. And when he finished singing it, they all clapped for him. That was something that happened at Dean's Gate, and we thought that was quite remarkable. So he'll be proud if we have good. Since it's such a small gathering, it's become a lot more personal than we realized. So I hope everyone feels comfortable. We just become more interactive between us because of that. So we'll just move on with that. Thank you. So
No, we don't know.
you think it's something about this other? Is it on?
There's tea and coffee outside and water. Anyone?
So just to introduce myself, I'm Nicolee. I am the daughter of Basil Murray, who's Vernon's brother. And I kind of feel like I'm the representative for the Murrays and the Watermayers. Lily has trouble traveling, and so my dad decided to go to her in Port Elizabeth. So they are there on the camera and they're watching us all this morning. So hello, Dad and Lily and Melanie. But on behalf of all of them, I just wanted to say how sorry we are, and my brother and sister as well, how sorry we are that we've come to an end of this era. It's quite sad, but I remember so clearly when Mocky died. This must be 25 years ago, 30 years ago, I don't even remember. We were all together in Bloemfontein and in Colesberg and Middelburg, and just the stories that were going around there. And I remember Uncle Vernon then talking about how he has known 7 generations. And what a privilege it is, all of us, to have known 7 generations down to our grandchildren and possibly great-grandchildren. I don't think I'll make that. But what a privilege that is, and how wonderful it is to be part of a big family like this. So we mourn with you, and we are grateful with you for what we have experienced, for who we've known. And so I just want to say hi, happy. Thanks.
Is someone else who would like to say a few words now? Here, yeah, a bit later. I'm going to say what my message was for Mum and Dad, for Dad. Just live a long life, and he told me often the story, especially in the later years, the last few years. He told me the story about how I used to grow up behind his left shoulder in the Land Rover because Mum was at home looking after the children, and well, my siblings, my younger siblings, and so I would be driving around in the Land Rover, and it has always been a wonderful connection because of that. Very happy memories. So what I can say about that, the first thing I'd like to say is that what I admire most about him, the very most, is his can-do attitude. We would come home with a problem, and he would arrive back from overseas, and we would have a problem. He would put his suitcase down and he would come and assist. And it wasn't entirely always linked to what was happening on his property that we all lived together. But it was just that that was the kind of person he was. He would never step back from something. The second example I'd like to say shortly is, I have told the story so many times, so I'm going to tell it fast. On a Friday afternoon, Grahamstown, Dad's working for Flassenthal, the phone rings. It's 4 p.m. on a Friday afternoon. Everyone's gone home. He's alone in the office. He picks up the phone. It's a farmer. Please, can you come and help me? I want to send some cattle to market. Now, you can run through in your own thoughts what most people would have said. Friday afternoon, 4 o'clock. What Dad said is, I'll be at your farm tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock. And that is the person who sent him overseas to go and select cattle. I'll be brief about it. The second wonderful thing about my dad is his unconditional love. He would be able to love people, and he said many times, love people for who they are. Do not try to change them. Do not try to bend them to your will. Love them for who they are. And he set that example. I mean, we could stagger in any kind of strange outfits, with sometimes very strange friends. And he would still love us all unconditionally. And he would always be kind to everyone who visited. Always. He might say a few things to my mom behind closed doors, but he had that like surrounded by 5 fairly unreasonable. The next thing and the last thing I'd like to mention is his ability to laugh. I want to tell you a hunting story. I hope I haven't stolen any of my siblings' hunting stories. But the rules for hunting in Karoo are extremely strict. And a Karoo farmer will not be pleased with someone who treats his gun lightly or does not look after it or does not follow the proper rules for hunting. You could maybe bear me out. We grew up, even though none of us really shot, we really did hunting, but we know all about it because we heard so many stories. So one of the stories is, my dad had a friend called Charles from Pretoria. They went down to Uncle Basil's farm for a hunt, and everyone was ready. And when they were ready to hunt, he did something with his gun, and it went off right there in the company, and he shot his sandwiches. And Dad loved that story, told it so many times. And the nice thing about his humor is that it was sharp, it was intelligent, but it was never vicious. And it was never. So what I got taught from the God's answer goes down in mysteries is the classic. And it was, ek het vir Annelie gesê, ek hou van bologna sandwiches.
I think it's ready, so we can sing. Let's start before we
I'll finish my tribute by saying, what a privilege to sit in a room with people who have been what is left behind when everything burns away. When everything is over, when everything burns away, the people who are sitting here are what I'd call the leftovers in a crucible. In an experiment, you burn away what's not yours and not necessary. And that's what people are. We are here in our different disguises. Disguises too. And thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mommy.
We would love to see you.
And now we will sing.
Yes. And us.
All the angels pass, 4 years to shelter from the stormy clouds. Sufficient is thy Lord, and no defense is sure. Before the hills in order stood, waters received a friend. From heaven mercy thou art up, to endless is the same. 1,000 angels in thy sight are like an evening dawn. Short as the watch that is thy light before the rising sun. Thy light and heaven rolling sweet, with all its sons away. They fly o'er God's hands of feet, eyes as the opening nature's past, marvel glorious to come. Be thou our guide, and show us and love eternal.
Thank you. I would like Brian to please come. I would like to say a few words about Brian Sean as he's been to Brian, as well as Vernon, have been integral parts of my family. My dad and mum's lives forever. We're so grateful that you could be able to share this moment with them. And they know mom and dad, they know them so well, and they've been wonderful friends forever. So thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to say good morning to the Murray family and to the friends that are present here today, and to say that it is indeed a great honour to have been asked to deliver this eulogy this morning in the honour of late Vernon. Sadly, a few months ago, we bade farewell to Estelle, thus ending a bond and a marriage of 70 years. A testimony to the love and support enjoyed by these two wonderful people. I met the Murrays some 50 years ago and was privileged to enjoy a friendship with this upright and highly intelligent couple. Vernon was raised on a farm in the Colesberg district, and as Liesel explains, had a very different upbringing from the modern day child, enjoying farm life and all the adventures that go with it, including a favorite pastime of climbing a cliff face to extract honey from some very angry bees. That's something I would never attempt. Vernon attended primary school in Colesberg and matriculated at Grade College in Bloemfontein. He excelled in maths and in accounting. He was a great sportsman, an excellent student, and obtained a degree in agriculture at Stellenbosch University. He went on to work in Bloemfontein, where he met and married the love of his life, Estelle. Vernon was a highly respected businessman. He was a director of Premier Milling and CEO of Swazi Milling. I'm told that in his young years, Vernon was an accomplished equestrian. He had his own horse at the age of 4. He was riding the farm boundary line at 6 years of age and collected sheep and herding horses. But not only that, he was given the task by his father in later years to tame herds of horses. A picture of Vernon then begins to emerge. I once read that a man who tames horses needs to share a deep bond built on trust and mutual respect. Trust demands the highest level of integrity. This man's integrity not only earned him financial success, but it also respect in the community. And together it symbolizes the power of hard work, loyalty, and above all, a strong moral compass. Vernon was also an accomplished rugby player and played for Stellenbosch University in his young days. A successful businessman and a successful rugby player share many key characteristics. They both require discipline. They both require teamwork. They both require the ability to read the game and to provide leadership and motivation. I was privileged to experience all of these characteristic traits when I served as secretary to Vernon during his year of president of the Vernon Rotary Club. I learned a great deal from Vernon and he was a mentor to me and gave me valuable advice when I took over as president. We once did a Rotary project together whereby Vernon and several retired Rotarians gave of their expertise to help underperforming students to better themselves. How lucky were those students whom Vernon mentored. It is truly astounding that in his late 60s, Vernon came out of retirement and with the help of family members undertook a massive project by building a mill near King. That was, to me, mind-blowing. Years later, when I turned 60, I reached a crossroad and had to make a huge decision. I told Vernon and his family many times that the project that he undertook inspired me to make the right decision. My wife and I thoroughly enjoyed the occasional dinners that we shared with the Murrays. I so remember the delicious meals prepared by Estelle, the crackling fires, and the wonderful discussions, and most of all, the post-mortems of rugby matches recently played. As I mentioned, Vernon was an expert in this field. Vernon was quick-witted, and I remember he told me a story one day of an attempted hijack of his vehicle. I guess 99% of people would have just handed over the keys. But Vernon was having none of that. He just threw the keys over the nearest wall, and that was the end of it. We'll all remember Vernon as upright, dignified, with a friendly and smiling disposition. The last time I spoke with him was at the memorial service for Estelle. He clearly gathered his thoughts before answering my question. And that is how he was. He measured his words carefully. I'll always remember that about Vernon. Vernon and Estelle were blessed with 70 cherished years of marriage together. 70 years is designated as a platinum anniversary. Platinum is the most precious of all metals. Together they built a beautiful home and raised a wonderful family. They leave a legacy that will long be remembered. May the souls of this precious couple, Vernon and Estelle, be bound together eternally, and may they rest in peace, united once again forevermore. Thank you.
And if you turn to the back page, everyone, you'll see there's a song finished from them. This was my dad's one of my dad's favorite songs. I thought you could listen to it, and if you'd like to have a glass of water, stand and speak to this for a minute. You'd be welcome. So welcome. You may just think of you, you've got your own favorite music, and it felt endless pleasure for you.
Ja, was auf Englisch. It's never quite a few words. I'd just like to highlight two things that Liesel spoke about and from the songs. First of all, Dad and the horses. He not only loved horses and used every opportunity to try to get us to all ride really well. He once took all his children on an outride in Port Alfred. And it went very well. Nobody killed themselves, which was excellent. But as we stopped at the gate, right at the end, having successfully completed this trip, I fell off the horse. The horse was already at a standstill, so none of us were ever became truly good riders. But Dad did try. For many years, there were ever-changing pictures from children and grandchildren, paintings, drawings, and photographs on Mum and Dad's fridge. Whenever they passed there, something new would have appeared. But there were two things that never moved. One of them was the family photograph. It stayed there forever. But the second one was a magnet, which I think Michelle made for Mom. I'm not sure. But it said, man's reach should exceed his grasp, or what is a heaven for? And they lived by that saying. They never thought, okay, this is enough. They were always trying for something new, something better, something further. Both of them. Mom was also very innovative and full of new ideas. They lived a long and fruitful life, always doing new things and reaching new heights. Those of you who are here today knew them well, loved them, and that was my place. I will not list all the Dad's many achievements for you. You've heard some of them already, but if you know him, you know. And he displayed the same integrity, fortitude, and skill. Very few people I know had those abilities like our father. He thought that most things could be prepared with a pair of pliers and a bit of blow dart. He had his workshop, and whether it was woodwork or any kind of repairs, he saw to it that it was done. He taught us many important things, and he didn't think his girls had to go through life not knowing anything. So he taught us the important things, like how to drill a hole and put up, for example, a towel rail in the bathroom, and also how to put on a plug on a new appliance. And the reason he did that was so that we'd be independent, so that we would be self-sufficient, because that to him was very important. And every one of his daughters now maintains a far better toolbox than any husband or friend. No, we have our, it's true, but I'm not exaggerating, because we do all the necessary that has to be done without having to bother anybody. He taught us self-sufficiency. He taught us how to swim. He was a very good swimmer. And he taught us all how to swim, how to cut up meat for biltong. After those hunting expeditions, you must know something had to happen to that meat. And we were the team that had to do that. How to play 21, we called it. But I believe he called it that too. He would seat us around the dining room table and we'd play of an evening. He knew how to entertain. And the one thing I remember particularly of my teenage years was that we loved to go to see the latest movie. And then he would stagger home after a very busy week, having had trips out to Northam and Ellis and find us all with a packed picnic, and off we would go in our blue combi and go to drive-in. Those of you who don't know what drive-in is, I am sorry for you, because it was a wonderful experience. Anyway, he was strict about many things. He was strict about us doing decently at school. He wasn't obsessed with it. He was strict about money, about curfew, when you were allowed to start wearing makeup, when you were allowed to start wearing stockings. This was a huge issue. Makeup, I think, was 16 or something like that. And all the friends around us were coming to school with mascara. No, wasn't going to happen. And this biggest thing was, if you had new shoes, they had to fit properly. Otherwise, they went back to the shop. And the fitting meant that he had to fit one of those big fingers of his into the back of the shoe, between the heel and the shoe itself. And the reason, of course, was we were all growing, and shoes had to last a little bit as well. Let me just turn my page, sorry. He loved his children. He gave us a lot of love. He loved his grandchildren beyond words. And he showed us his love for our mother. They always say the best thing a man can do. He showed his children that he loves their mother. And he definitely did that. He would have happily gone with her last year when she passed away. He missed her every day after that. He would ask, "Where's Mom?" and have to be told again. And when he was in hospital, on one previous occasion, Lisa and I spent a lot of time caring for him, taking him things and staying there with him for some time. And one day he said to me, "Oh, I've got such a good wife," because he always thought that she was fantastic. Travels with Dad. He his tales of traveling as a young man by ship from England to South Africa, where he was in charge of all the cattle that were on board, feeding them, cleaning up after them, seeing to them that they didn't get sick, and so on. But I want to go back to when he was in London. He was a farm boy who grew up in a very rural, with a very rural upbringing. Colesberg School, I promise you, were not the highlight of anybody's life. There were often 3 different standards in one class.
This is my highlight.
Oh, was it your highlight? They both went to
Old class full of Murray family in the building. I think there
Yes.
was 18 of us. It was probably 16 with family. From grade 1 to 7, some ages.
Sorry, and on these travels, most of the time, it was when he was visiting America to purchase, and Europe and England, to purchase cattle for farmers. He was tasked to buy stock, breeding stock for them. And he knew cattle like nobody that I know. And he loved taking photographs, but unfortunately, there were none of the family, only cattle, lots. We can show you the slides that are still there. He did many exciting things with them. They took many trips. For example, they did the 2 of them in the narrow boat, the canals in England. I'm sure you heard Mom tell that story. And the other thing is, I'd like to just highlight a few of his faults before I finish, because it makes it sound as though he was a perfect person, and nobody is. The first thing was that he scared all our boyfriends. He put the fright of heaven into them. Always. Janice could tell you an interesting story about that as well. He woke on a Sunday, us all as teenagers, on a Sunday morning by playing Bach and Beethoven at full volume in the house, so that you had no choice but to wake up. He gave us all nicknames. I'm not going to tell you what they all were, because it's none of my business to tell you all of that. But I was called Pooch or Pooh. That's what he called me all my life. And it had nothing to do with Pooh Bear. It had to do with the opera from Madame Butterfly. There was a character called Ninky Poo. And so that's where that name came from. Loved opera. He and Mom used to go up to the opera all the time. His love for music. He also learnt a lot from that. When he was in London as a young man, he didn't go night clubbing and so on. What he did was, he went to Covent Gardens, to the East End, and he saw shows, theatre, opera, ballet. Ballet wasn't his favorite, but opera he loved. And he and Mom still used to listen on the Sunday night up to the end. Thank you, Dad, for what you mean to me personally, for offering help when times were tough, for always being there for myself and my little family. Your kind and gentle attitude was very much appreciated. And he did, when I was first married, the department I decided I no longer existed and didn't pay me for 3 months. The dad phoned one day and said, "How are you doing?" I said, "I can't get my money out to the department." And he sent someone in an import car with a check for 25 rand to Potchefstroom to just be of help. And in those days, if you tell me 25 rand was a lot of money, my monthly budget was 43. So it was lots of money. So we survived. And he was often our first person that we called on. He taught me how to budget when I was at school and at college. It didn't rub off very well, I'm afraid. I still can't make that budget work every month. But he tried to make all the budgets. So I could really go on, but I've spoken too long already. Wonderful father to us all, and to me, a treasure. And he and Mom were very good to us. Thank you.
Just happy. Let's try not to fall again. X marks the spot. Hi everybody, I'm Janice, I'm the youngest, and Ingrid's given me a great segue into a story. Dad and boyfriends. Dad was a lot of things to all of us. For me, it was the twinkle in his eye when he danced and music. And yeah. And there was a third one. In their younger, wilder days, they would have these parties in the big house next door. And Dad had a tea box, and he would pay the brace. And the next day, his hands would be raw. There was just nothing left there. But man, and Rupert Marie on the piano, and everybody standing around. I was there with my tambourine, because of course I was there. And that was Dad's very happy spot. But with that, Dad gave me a love for dance, which carried through forever. And my favorite was to dance with Dad. And he definitely instilled in me the love, which I then carried through and eventually danced. So that was very wonderful. But part of the dancing was that I went to the school for the drill. Well, it's changed its name, but it was then we called it the ballet school in Joburg. And obviously I was doing ballet. It was ballet, drama, and arts. Yeah. And I was costing Dad a fortune in ballet shoes. The school did supply us with 2 pairs a year. Didn't touch base. So Dad, being a man that can make anything, found out that I was 13, okay, I was this tall, I was very special because I was a ballerina. And the ballet shoes, the point shoes, the ones that we wore here were from England. They had plaster of Paris in the front with a wooden backing, and of course satin. And Dad found out that the American ones, the Capezias, were spectacular because they were made of fiberglass, so they didn't pummel so quickly. Their backings were steel, and he heard that you can put leather onto ballet shoes, and he offered to make me a pair. I declined the information, the offer, and he never made me anything for years until I had the kids, and he made them a great rocking horse. But that was, well, you've had your chance off the list for making things for you. But can you imagine me as a 13-year-old going to ballet school with these? I mean, we always wore homemade clothes, but Mom didn't homemade clothes, Mom made clothes. But I wasn't taking the chance on the shoes. That was not happening. With regards to the boyfriends, I had a very good friend, Vernon, who used to visit through all the years. I can say his name because he's actually met my husband, and they were good friends. Sadly, Vernon passed away a couple of years ago. And when Vernon would come visit on a Saturday afternoon, that was when Dad would clean his guns. Now, we've heard that never have you seen a safer man with a weapon, but Dad would take them out, crack the barrel, clean them, fight. Who was sitting there? Bored. And I said to him, Dad, you know, really, I'm going to have a very lonely childhood.
And he said, well, if they come back, they've got some metal and they're really interested. He wasn't wrong, but I'm sure there could have been a different way to have learned that particular lesson. And then the last thing I want to tell is about how everyone has spoken, and Brian, we also spoke about how Dad in his late 60s started a whole new operation with Arby and Tess, and started that whole business. And I went back to work after being at home raising my kids for 20 years. And that was such an inspiration for me. And I often speak about my parents. I bragged about the fact that they were married for 70 years and what they've done with their lives, and completely not related, but also Tess, who is a late age, got her doctorate. But what I used to teach, what I still teach my team, is that it's never too late to change your path. Dad at 68, was 68? 68, started a new business, which has allowed all of this. And it's never too late to change your path. And most of my team have got a bit of a side hustle. And the one guy, when he saw my WhatsApp status about Dad, and he actually phoned me and said, Janice, you won't realize it, but the stories you told about your father actually inspired me to reinvestigate and put in extra energy into my side hustle, because if your dad could do it at 68, I can definitely do it at 21. And to me, that was so just a complete random story that I was telling my team, and that's carried through. And that, I think everyone that has ever come into contact with Dad had that experience. He was great. And man, I love to dance with him. But yeah, never had the last dance, but I am very glad that he's with Mom. And thank you all for being here. Tink, do you want to do your bit?
Can I stand next to you?
Yes.
My bit is very quick. Right.
My daughter Cleopatra.
My bit is more also, I didn't get to go to Muti's funeral last year, unfortunately. We're from the Cape. But my bit is also just to kind of mourn the family gatherings here. You know, me and Max grew up with all our big cousins here, our whole family around this long table. We get squished around the end because we were the small ones. Marion, thank you for coming in, so we were no longer the youngest ones. But what I loved about Mitten Opes is, you know, they were very proper, very strict. But if Max and I were scooping an extra scoop of ice cream or scooping an extra 3 scoops of the infamous berry pudding that they made, we were the grandkids, so it was okay. So just coming here and growing up with them was just so lovely to have such wonderful grandparents, and such an awesome big family. So I'm gonna miss coming to Korean. Gonna miss, you know, having an awesome family holiday. I was chatting to Max on the plane yesterday. It's so weird coming here and not having them here. You know, you come to Adune Drive to see your grandparents, and it's going to be very weird not having that again. But it's really lovely to have all of the family, all of the wonderful family friends here to, you know, celebrate, as you guys are saying, the wonderful legacy they've left behind of everyone. So, end of the era. Thank you, Tick.
Should we ask if you want to interact with people who want to join us? Which one you want? Should we ask them first? Yes, let's ask them. Yeah.
Uncle Basil, they're asking you. Yes, you are. Let's just see. Uncle Basil, they're asking you.
Vernon gone. Oh, he's
I'm
not a speaker,
Basil,
sorry, we just need to speak
Vernon's
back.
brother, and this is
Oh,
next to me is Maureen, or we all call her Lenny, Vernon's sister, of course. And I must thank the clever people in Vernon and here in Port Elizabeth that made this broadcast possible so that we can all enjoy this gathering, this memorial service together. First of all, I want to tell you
Hi,
that
Rod, just ask them to stop and
Vicky,
start
my
again.
wife's
We got no sound here. Thank you.
grandfather died many years. He was an old man when he died. And from the time he turned 70, he said, now Noah's Ark and Besiering state, which means at the end of a rugby match, the referee would allow a little extra playing time for injury that had happened, that had held up the play. So he said he's in Besiering state. Well, a lot of us are in Besiering state. And I don't see it as that. I see it as extra years that we are given to enjoy our family and our friends so much longer. So it's a blessing to be in Besiering state. The very first memory I have of Vernon is seeing a big horse with a little boy.
Probably not be good at remembering dates. And so she arranged that I would present in this world after 3 daughters on the date of his birth. And so my father and I shared a birthday, and it was always a question who would phone whom first in the morning. And a bit of a joke as to when the conversation started, as to who would say happy birthday first. His name was from his great uncle. His great uncle had died in the Great War, which had been incredibly traumatic for my grandfather to lose his older brother. He was at Saxe in his country on the date of his brother embarked from France. And he went down to the harbour to see him off and missed his brother. And so there was this terrible disconnect that when he went to see his brother off to war, that he actually missed him that day, and then great uncle didn't come home. He's eternally on the Menard Gate in Belgium, which is now another disastrous country, but anyway. There are all those boys from the Karoo that fought for freedom. And I was lucky enough to inherit a lot of that culture, which is why it's so important to me. And so nearly I also went to Carlsberg Primary, where my dad's first encounter at Carlsberg Primary was to be asked on his first day at school, asking not of some. Now, for those who don't know what that meant, that's sort of like if you today, are you ANC or Jacob Zuma or EFF or whatever. It was quite the gulf between being a supporter of the South African Party of Johnny Smuts, where they put the English-speaking Africans, Boers, with the Boers, and formed, they were called smelters, when you were going to smelt together. And my father was a true smelter, and his beautiful Karoo Afrikaans, the most wonderful grammar, never an Anglicism, never a shortcut, with an accent that is without feigned sophistry, but which falls so beautifully on the air. Almost like the Namanko Afrikaans, but not as artistic. Not like young Space, those Namibian guys. They also, exercise too much license. But I think that the Karoo people, they keep it very direct, very simple, because it's a hard life. And it was a culture born out of the most incredible adversity over generations. All of those families had lost members in the Great War, the Second World War, and there was a sense of duty that you did not fail. That no matter how unpleasant things were, you just sucked it up and you go on, which is a good thing to have in life. That the little stinging arrows of misfortune should not make one feel over sad on the day. They're just stinging arrows of misfortune. They happen. And it's not because life is against you. It's just the way things are. And I can remember there was a past raid, and my mother had found this wonderful woman when we were living in Grahamstown and smuggled her up to Pretoria. At the time when Pretoria was white by night, and they couldn't get her transferred with the administration bureau. There were 100 rules in those days, but both of my parents sort of considered themselves to be decent people, and that illegal laws didn't really apply to them. And so she was there with us. But there was a past raid one night, and I was 3 years old, and I said, but why are the police doing this? And he explained to me that it was an illegal thing under the law. And as a little kid, I said, but Dad, that's not fair. And he said, but my boy, life's not fair. Life is not fair. And Dad knew that. And so he was never a victim of life, even although he suffered the most savage and cruel indignities, such as getting punched when he went back to school with the answer to the question, saying, I'll stop the end of blood nose, because he went back with the wrong answer for that school bully. And I won't say which way around it was, because you get, as they say, you get good people on both sides, you get the bullies on both sides. And but anyway, he really excelled as a human being at not taking on board any wrong that had been done to him. And when his brother-in-law and his sister-in-law were murdered by the agents of the state, and the family lived in terror, when he was shut out of his industry, unable to earn a crust. Well, fortunately, there were the Jews as well, and one of the old Jews employed him, a Lithuanian Jew. And my father emerged 6 months later speaking Yiddish, and was an absolute love of Yiddish humor and the Yiddish language. And so I ended up learning a lot of Yiddish from him, and I antagonized one of the most powerful men in Joburg by calling him a schmuck and a pisha in the same sentence. And, anyway, I can only say that this influence of these Jewish people on my father's life, it started when he was a youngster. And the horse trader, his father bred horses, and the horse trader that bred the horses used to say to my grandmother that my father was the best negotiator on horses. But I think he said that to all the farmers' wives, because you have to be a little bit smooth when you're trading. But he had this long association through his life that even like Hilliard Cuman of Noordwest Corporatie, he was the only Jewish director of any of the major co-ops. And my dad used to go and buy his beans every year, his sugars. And we'd sit there and they'd go through this whole ritual as though they were having a negotiation. But they all knew before they even met that they were going to agree. The market price is the market price. But they had this long and happy relationship. And that was all the rituals about it. So because of my dad, I met Joe Bloom, Tony Bloom. Tony Bloom, I broke a horse for his daughters. That was amazing. My dad woke me up one morning and said, we're going to Mr. Bloom's farm. Only when we got there did he show me 3 wild-looking horses that hadn't been toned or ridden for a couple of years, and said, you just have to check that those are safe for Mr. Bloom's children to ride. Now, I think that's the communion. I survived that, but I did feel that if the Blue Daughters hadn't been watching, I might have refused to get on the horse because the one took off and it was quite a nerve-wracking experience. But you know, my dad, he could often walk you into a situation that you weren't expecting, and suddenly you find yourself doing something that you never believed possible. And I remember a trip up to Khamsi, where there were still what we used to call bushmen or sand people that were the cattle guards looking after the place. And they actually had a nickname for him, which meant the man that walks backwards, because he was a big man, and when he met people, he'd shake their hand, and then he'd step back a yard or two so that people wouldn't have to crane up to him. And this was very obvious, you know, if you're a sand man, you know, then you probably weren't going to be 6'4" and from Jutland. and so this sensitivity, without being woke or politically correct or whatever, but in this very humble and direct way, he exactly saw where people were. And if they were bad to him, he could see, but it's their bad, it's not mine. And so he didn't take stuff on board. But he didn't allow himself to be trifled with. And, you know, he did tell me, don't take a gun anywhere where you're going to fight, take a Buza fighting stick. And that's a good thing, because you can't use a firearm to protect yourself unless you want to go to jail. And it's just crazy anyway. But he had the capacity to identify with people. We traveled all over trading cattle. I saw him dealing with the son of one of the Boer generals, General Maritz. His son was like the most difficult man that you could imagine. He used to, as a wrestler, would throw people out of the ring. And but he'd been a grade also with our late uncle, my mom's younger brother. So there was a sort of a relationship there. But Umani and my dad got on like a house on fire, even although Umani's father had shot two of my uncles during the rebellion. And you know, that's the important part about the human person. You can't be cross with every 54, it's not forever. It's got to end at some stage. And that was important for him. The other thing that I noted in my journey through life with him is how he promoted people that no one else had recognized, that he identified strength in people. One of them actually married Norman Stein, who had worked with Dad, Melanie. She came straight out of matric, hadn't had a job, but she had a good maths mark. And my father said, well, if she's got a good maths mark, there has to be something up there. And he gave her a job, and she flourished. She became the head of raw material procurement for the Ipoh animal feed industry, which is a pretty sophisticated and amazing job that she rose to. And if she had not met my dad early in her life, she'd never have had that first little jump up. And I think he gave so many people that little jump up. The Africans all believed that he spoke Sesotho, Zulu, Xhosa, Sepedi, Tswana, because he had enough snatchings in each that he could guff his way through. And so he could give anybody a culturally appropriate greeting. And even with the body language and whatever, something that is an ancestral skill that is lost today. But the blacks at the mill where I worked with them all believed that he spoke every indigenous language perfectly. And that was just so amazing, how the regard they had for him, and the respect that they showed him, not out of anything other than the affection for the way that, the recognition for how he had treated them. And so when he retired, and this is where I'll close, these men that were earning 27 Rand a week clubbed together out of their hard-earned pay enough money to buy him a set of traditional weapons, and that came from the Zulu half of the workers who said, a man needs his weapons, but the Masutis bought him a Delcy briefcase. And they said, you need this to carry yourself further in life. And more than anything, the fact that such disparate people could identify with him and find something that they found so admirable and respectable, I think sums up my dad's life so well. Thank you so much.
So, Kristen might ask Uncle Basil to leave us now.
Okay, they're going to come to you now, Uncle Basil.
So, Kristen might ask Basil to leave us now.
Can you hear Uncle Basil?
To you now, Uncle Basil.
Here we go. All yours.
Okay. I believe Canada
Can you
was
continue?
hearing
Can
me,
everybody?
but so I was casting my voice too far. Thank you for connecting what was disconnected. I'm Basil, Vernon's brother, and this is Maureen, known as Nini, his sister. The first memory I have of Cecil, when I could start remembering, I can just remember a big horse with a little boy sitting on it. And that was Cecil on Lolly, his favorite horse. They loved each other, and the horse would, at his command, go right next to an ant heap or some help to get him up onto the saddle, and then they'd go off. That love for horses continued all his days. On the farm, wherever there was work to be done, and we did mainly horse-drawn plowing and sowing and mowing and raking, all by horses. And wherever horses were inspanned, or even young horses were trained, he was right in the midst of it from that very beginning. Till he was a man. He was also keen to learn more about sheep. My dad was a breeder of black-head Persians, and he used to go to various shows to judge the classes. And Vernon used to, when the sheep were in the kraal, Vernon would discuss with him various show points that he could learn and know more about judging and about sheep. And he ended with that early interest. He ended being a breed judge at the Rand Easter Show, and he was asked to judge the champion of champions. And so all that honor was given to him because of that early training on the farm and that early interest in animals. I want to tell you also an incident. Well, while he was at junior school in Carlsberg, he was in the Boy Scouts, and when I joined a year later, I was also in his patrol. There were 5 of us. There were 3 patrols, I think, and 5 in each one. And the one patrol that we were competing against, they had a scout had been trained elsewhere, and he had all sorts of proficiency badges and honors in scouts. So they always put that patrol on, in front for whenever we fell in for our meetings. And we weren't so happy with that. And we said, but let's have a competition to see which is the best patrol. And then Vernon organized us, and he told us ahead of time, practice your knotting and practice lighting a fire with 2 matches and practice making a tripod for hanging a pot to cook food and so on. So we did that practice in our next meeting when we had this competition to see who was the best patrol. Uh, we started as the third patrol, but we did our knotting and our various knots and various competition. One of the competitions, we had to go onto the little hill and we were given 2 matches each patrol, and we had to find fuel and make a tripod and do it all. And we thought about that ahead, and Vernon had told us how to do it quickly. So he was in charge of the matches, and there was another member of the scouts tied the tripod and hung a little tin. We each had a tin with water in it, and it was the patrol that could boil the water first that would get the prize. So we all rushed around getting wood. The little kettle, the little pot was hanging, ready for the fire. They got the fire kindled and going, and by that time we got a few weeds, dry weeds, and we packed them together and put them on the kindled fire, and there it, a big flame. I was afraid the tripod was going to burn, but the flame was so good that we had the water boiling first. And so we got first prize in that, we got first prize in the knotting, and eventually we ended up as the winners, thanks to Vernon's planning for the competition. So the next time we gathered together, our patrol was in front because we were the top patrol. Um, we had a scout camp about 10 miles out, or call it 15 kilometers out from Carlsberg, and Vernon organized a farm wagon, a light wagon, and horses, and he got them all ready. And when we were due to leave for our camp, we all got in the wagon, and he took the reins and drove us out to Middlewater, not far out of Carlsberg, close to Longwood, and that's where we had our first scout camp. And there were strict rules. We were not allowed to jump off and on the wagon while it was moving. So whenever we stopped, some of us jumped off and would trot along with the wagon until the next stop, and then we'd get back on again. Um, then we were off to university. He'd been to Stellenbosch before I went to university, obviously. And uh, when we went there, he'd been at university a year or two already, and he paved the way for me. He had a friend who had an old 1929 Chev Lulu called, and uh, Lulu was available for £35, and he persuaded my folks to buy Lulu for me for a university car, which was a huge boost for me, a boost forward. And he made sure that I was getting sufficient allowance as a student would need for normal living. So he was the one that prepared the way for me, not only there, but elsewhere in life. When he left university, he was also keen on rowing, and they used to row at Marselspoort. And once he borrowed Lulu from me. That was the second Lulu I had, with a little dicky seat behind. And we found that if you ride fast with that car and switch off for a moment and switch on again, then you would have a huge explosion in the exhaust system. That sounded like a big shot that had gone off. And in the back of this little dicky seat, two of the people going out to train for rowing would lean over the back of the car, and when a car was approaching to pass, they would lean over with the jack, which is a long straight thing with a handle on, and make as though they're shooting, and then suddenly the explosion from the exhaust would come, and the people would get a big shock. Anyway, he was borrowing my car for that time, and I was in Cape Town and got a summons from the police to come please explain what shooting at that cause was all about. Anyway, I handed it over to Vernon to cope with that problem. Um, uh, for university and for getting on with parents and the farming future. He was the one again who paved the way and explained what was needed and what sort of an interest I needed in the farming and so on. And again, he was the one who went before and prepared the way for me. So that was a very fond memory. So we understood each other, and he was my advocate, as it were, to prepare the way. Uh, but in spite of this, we had our differences, but he was still my brother, and he cared for me, and I cared for him. And I think Maureen feels the same about him, that he was a good brother that we had. And I just want to say, oh, and I must mention, while uh, working with the animals, he learned to judge sheep. He was discussing judging with my dad all the time, and that trained him for his judging. And he was actually the secretary and judge of the Red Pearl Breeders Association. And then, as I said, later he judged the champion of champions at the Rand Easter Show. So thank you, brother. You paved the way for me. You made it good for me, easy for me. Thank you.
Mom, do you want to say something?
Easy for me. Thank you.
I was wondering if you could go to the cost of
Hello, everyone. Am I next?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying to keep this. They boxing and
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
sorry, it's buffering on their side. So he's there.
Hi, guys. Can you hear me? Okay, everyone. I'm just going to keep going. As many of you know, Mitzi and Opa were like a second set of parents for us Steyn kids, and we spent a huge amount of time with them. This time enriched my life in so many ways, and Mitzi and Opa will be in my heart forever. When I think about Opa, I remember a very special man who meant the world to everyone who knew him. You would have to go a very long way to find someone who had something bad to say about him. I remember Opa taking us on many adventures. Some highlights spring to mind: learning how to ride a horse, going bird watching for the annual competition, and finding more bird species on a single day than I even knew existed. Opa also took me on my first hunt where I shot a springbok, and I will never forget this wonderful experience. The family hunts were a highlight for us all, and being together with Opa and Mutsi as the backbone of the family was very special to us all. His inventive boer market plant spirit played a huge role in shaping me into the person I am today. I could go to Opa with anything that I was struggling with, and he would always help to solve problems in a unique way. There was never a problem too big or too small. I remember one of my first school science projects where Opa helped me build a next level rubber band car that sparked my interest in science and how things work. The rubber band car, I think, almost won the school science fair because it your average rubber band car. I think part of me wanting to be an engineer was because of Opa always wanting to find the best solution to a challenging problem. Him building the mill from scratch into a successful business after his retirement was amazing. And it's a testament to his ingenuity. I still wonder how he managed to pull off such a huge undertaking with so much risk involved at that stage of his life. The man certainly had gumption and never gave up. Opa was and is my hero in many ways. I will never forget him, and I trust that he is now at peace, and I hope that he and Mutsi spirits will forever be together. Thank you, everyone. That's all from me. Miss and love you all.
I just wanted to say, Jess will wrap up afterwards. So, any of the graduates will wrap up. And Stevie, I'm sure you'd like to say. You also want to say. And thank you for keeping it brief so that we can also ask Vernon, would you like to say too? Would you like to say
Yeah, I mean, after everyone's spoken and what Lucas said, to summarize the impact that Opa and Mutsi had on our lives, and especially how close us four were with them because of where we lived, I mean, I certainly wouldn't be able to do it within the time allowance. So instead, I'll just share one of my favorite stories of Opa. And although everyone is saying, and I've also always thought about the legacy Opa left and how hard he worked to create a life that he wanted for himself. The one trait I wish he hadn't passed on to as many of us is procrastination. And my favorite story that I thought about every time I had to write a test, because I always left myself too little time, was that when he was at school, he had to study for a test and he had left too little time. And there were two different sections that he had to study. And he was like, I can't cover everything. So he chose to commit and just study one half. Next day comes, the test is on the other half. So instead of not writing anything, he just fills it in with the answers he knows, completely the incorrect answers because it's from the wrong work. And he gets his test back, and all the test they had written was "nice try, Murray." And that for me is just, yeah, I always think about that story. And I mean, I think some of the experiences that we got, as Lucas was saying, the bird watching, and Opa taking us to polo matches, or taking us along with him to go to the mill, and we played inside of the silos, stepping on the millies, and climbing up all the millie bags. I mean, I don't think there are lots of grandkids that experience the stuff we experienced thanks to Opa. And yeah, I'll miss him very dearly. Him and Mutsi will leave a massive vacuum in our lives.
And still.
This is so difficult because wait, let me get myself. What do you say when words fail you? Because Mutsi and Opa were my soulmate, and it doesn't feel like the world should go on because they're gone and I'll never see them again. But so I decided, because it's impossible to speak, and when words fail me, I'm going to sing a song that I sang to Opa when he was really hard sore about Mutsi, and it brought him comfort. And he asked me to sing it, And that's the only reason I do it, because I'm not one for. So I'll just sing what Opa asked me to do. And so I dedicate this to my darling Opa and Wixie, who loved him so much and they loved one another. And to my mom, this is for you too, Mom. Your amazing dedication and love for Opa is otherworldly. And excuse me. Sing me a song of a lad that is gone. Say, could that lad be he? Merry of soul, he sailed on a day over the sea to sky. Billow breeze, islands and seas, mountains of rain and snow. All that was good, all that was him, all that is he is gone. Sleep is a reconciling, a sleep that peace begets. Does not the sun rise smiling when at even he sets? Rest thee then, rest, sad eyes, melt not in weeping, as I lay sleeping. Softly, softly, now softly, softly lay sleeping. Over the mountains and over the waves, under the fountains and under the graves, over floods that are deepest, that Neptune obey, over rocks that are steepest, love will find out the way. Yes.
Just want to, Anton, would you like to say 2 or 3 words? You can just say it.
Well, it's not short.
And then, Mary?
Als is eigenlijk al gezegd, al wat ik wil zeggen, iemand met een beetje Afrikaans praat. Ja, is geboren en getoerd op Kanaal in die Koolstad district. Na die tijd was die depressiejaren, so dat boere zwaar gekry. Dus van vroeg af moes dad steeds inspring en help op die plaas. En dit het hom geleer om hard te werk, het ook geleer om spaarzaam te wees. En het ook onafhankelijkheid van geest te gee. En die laatste paar dae het hy baie keer terug verlang en hy wil altyd teruggaan na sy geboorteplek. Ek dink ons almal later, as ons aan die einde van die lewe kom, wil gaan. Die res is eintlik al gesê, maar daar was 'n goeie besigheidsman, daar's reeds genoem. Op 'n deel van Premier Malin. En primeele wat hy begin het saam met Abi. Op 'n later ouderdom, klaar in sy 60, die mede het beplanning gekos, het kennis gekos, het neersettingsvermoë gekos, het kapitaal gekos, en met alles het hulle dit saam gedoen, en dit was 'n groot sukses die mede. Die ander ding, daar was 'n man van vele talente. Hy is soos reeds genoem, hy was 'n kenner van beeste, hy was 'n beoordelaar, kenner van skape, en was lief vir perde. Hy het sy belangstelling, hy het gehou van rugby, hy het gehou van cricket, hy het altyd geskreeu vir die WP, die tweede span was daar in die Vrystaat, hy het gehou van genealogie, hy het gehou van musiek, hy het gehou van lekker kuier, en hy het ook 'n besondere liefde gehad vir genetika. So ons kom al daai dinge gesels. Die ding wat ek ook baie onthou, is hoe Dad omgesien het na sy familie. Hy het altyd mooi gekyk, en mooi gesorg vir hulle. Hy was baie lief vir sy 5 kinders, en was baie trots op hulle. Hy was ook verskriklik trots op sy kleinkinders en agterkleinkinders, en sy kleinkinders het hom baie vreugde verskaf. As ek dit kan opsom, Dad was 'n man van integriteit. Sy woord was sy eer. Sy eer was sy woord. Daar is min mense soos hy, en sy lewe was goed en vol van waarde. Dad, ek gaan jou mis, rus en vrede, liewe Dad. Dankie.
Speaking on behalf of my daughter's show, who's in Canada, and it's early hours of the morning. If she's still awake, I'm impressed. Because she's on her own there with her 2.5-year-old. But in any case, she sent, this is her message, her remembrances of Opa. When I remember oaks, I see cattle, strong bulls, and gleaming cows. I see handsome horses saddled and ready to run. I see the Karoo in late afternoon. When I remember oaks, I hear his stories. Stories that form beautiful pictures of a rich and wonderful life lived. Stories that shared experiences, struggles, triumphs, lessons, and laughter. When I remember oaks, I see him slowly walking through his beautiful garden, admiring the flowers and trees that we have all enjoyed so much. I see him selecting a bottle of Cameroon Coke from the liquor cabinet for us to enjoy with the delicious lunch to come. I hear his laugh, a warm chuckle that always sounded like it came from his belly. I feel his hugs and slightly bristly kisses. I see him snoozing in his chair. I hear him calling for his steady. Oaks, I miss you so much, but you're with your steady. Our Mutsi as it should be, and that makes the loss a little easier to bear. I love you, Oaks. And then I would just like to say a few things like my dad too. When I think of my father, 3 words immediately come to mind: courage, charm, and authenticity. I'm approaching the age that Dad was when he started rolling. Every time I have one of those moments where I feel I want to slow down and retire, I'm reminded of what he did in his golden years. I'm overwhelmed with the deepest admiration and respect for his courage, his energy and tenacity, and the way in which he not only created his most fulfilling work experience of his life, but he also enabled a most remarkable retirement of adventure for himself and Mom, ticking off all the items on the bucket list. Throughout his life, he attracted people with his charm, embrace of fun, music, and an element of wickedness in his humor. This attraction endured until the end. In the brief time that he spent in frail care, He quickly became known to his fellow residents, joined in their activities, and made new friends. He was invited for tea with residents in one of the retirement cottages, which the nursing staff told me was unprecedented. Another resident would only, I think she had a real crush on me, this one. Another resident would only agree to dine in the frail care area if he was dining there too. And they just understood that's how it was. But he was also controversial, challenging opinions and bias, and encouraging critical thought. Yet he was always willing to learn from these interactions, reflecting the authenticity of his interest in others. And several people have mentioned these things already, but let me just say it again. One of Dad's special gifts was to identify the special gifts in others. Many careers were guided by his ability to identify where one would succeed. It was not necessarily what you wanted to hear. But when I listened to him, Dad guided me in the choices that I made throughout my life. However, it was only when 40 years later, I followed the advice he gave to me as a teenager. Go and do research. It was then that I finally found my route to self-actualization. Identifying the special gifts in others is also how he chose his life partner. This is reflected in his profound respect for our maternal grandfather and his first comments to me every day when visiting him over the past few months. There were days when he was focused on a photo of a young Estelle, and he'd say with a twinkle in his eye, "That's Father Ott's daughter. I think I'm making a move on her." On other days, he was grieving his loss, and he'd say to me, "She was a wonderful woman. I loved her so much." And that love was mutual. One evening in May last year, a carer was in the room when Mum and Dad kissed and said goodnight to one another. The carer was moved almost to tears, and her words to me were, "I have never seen anything like that. That is true love." Today, we mourn the loss of our beloved father. We also mourn, as several of you have mentioned too, the end of the era of the Murray's Bay Dune Drive. But we can also see it as a chapter in the legacy that we inherit from a grandfather who persevered to attain PhD at the age of 76, a mother who was with stringent intellect, who provided lifelong support and encouragement to those around her, and a father who was courageous, charming, and authentic in his leadership. We inherit the reassurance that it is never too late to realize your aspirations. We are blessed with a legacy that we, our children, and our grandchildren proudly advance.
Thank you very much. Let us now to sing our last song, and that is The Lord's My Shepherd. So everybody know, the Lord's My Shepherd is the traditional family wedding song. We'll take over at their wedding. The congregation sang The Lord is My Shepherd, Psalm 23, at Jesus' wedding as well, and at my wedding, and at yours, Jan, and at yours. We sang it at all the weddings. And when we were on this wonderful trip, I'm sure some of you have heard of it. We went on that amazing trip with Tess and Michelle, organized by us, the entire family in a little bus, and we went all over the Free State, and we saw all the places where they had lived and where the remains of our grandparents were, and so on. The bus driver was a strange man, and he said to me one day, "Ek het nog nooit in my lewe mense gesien wat so baie belangstel in die dooies." Because we were talking history all the time and so on. But the thing is about the Psalm 23, we stopped in Bloemfontein, in front of the church in which they were married. And we went in, and the choir was busy praying. So they sang the whole Psalm 23 for us. There in the church, just the choir and us. It was really special.
Sorry, excited about to do. Should we pick up with he makes me dance loud.
Restore and me to walk as men within the paths of righteousness in glory's sake. Yet will I feel no guilt, for thou hast me and sorry comfort so. My table has in presence of my with oil anoint and my cup flows. Goodness and mercy my life shall surely follow me, and in God's house forevermore my dwelling place shall be.
And
Speaker.
we've come to the end of the ceremony, and it was a bit longer than we hoped. So thank you for patience. It just seemed, but these are the times when a young man gets married, that's an opportunity to speak his heart, and when a parent dies. And we all start children. Thank you for speaking your hearts. Thanks for everyone for what you contributed. And we did do some homework in your honor. We put together a lot of snacks with the tapas thing. I'm not sure if it's brunch or lunch. strange combination of everything. So while we get ready to, I'll play everyone jazz. He loved jazz with a passion. And so I'm going to put a bit of spirit, think of him. I'm going to play some of his special. They'll be playing throughout the lunch. We'll play some of his Ella and Billy Armstrong. We'll play a little bit of Dave Brubeck, a bit of Glenn Miller. We're even going to go for Neil Diamond for August night. We're even going to remember Song Sun Moon, which he loved, and we will never forget how he could pick us up from a party and put Neil Diamond on full blast and sing For My Children. Even though it's a sad song, the bit about For My Children, that was the most. So thank you very much, and please enjoy.
Yeah.